Hello, students of Research Methods, Criminal Justice Course 3302 for Criminal Justice Research. We're going to start off with a couple of things to try to get you acclimated to the course and the content. I wanted to quickly look at your syllabus. You can see that this is an online course. First and foremost, the line of communication between y'all and the professor is going to be at sean.morrow@angelo.edu. Always, I cannot stress enough, always use your ASU email that you've been given as a student. Remember that communicating is a key to succeed in life. If you do not communicate, professors do not know if and when students have questions, comments, or concerns. As well as, I wanted to put a note in here where it says, attention, notice, this junior level course will conduct criminal justice case research concerning, well, it says the juvenile justice system, but it's supposed to be the research methods, as well as other topics within the criminal justice system. The content of this course does have graphic and adult content. Students in this course will perform active investigations using your textbook, articles, videos, audio files, and other media online to gather the crucial knowledge of evidence such as death, nudity, blood, bite marks, bruises, gunshots, as well as profane language. Please note that this course contains adult and graphic content associated with the daily routines of an officer within the criminal justice system. There will be skill-building hands-on projects throughout the semester. Each student is required to participate. Failure to participate, the student will receive a 0. Follow all directions at all times when completing each of the assignments. Students must follow directions in order to become successful throughout this course, as well as in the criminal justice system. This course description of research methods covers the entire research process, including formulating research questions, sampling, probability, non-probability, measurements, research design, experimental and quasi-experimental, data analysis, writing the research paper. It will also address the major theoretical and philosophy underpinnings of research, including the idea of validity in research, reliability of measures, and ethics. It's real important to understand that this course, we're not so much going to look at stats, but we're going to look at a research paper. The parts, how to come up with those parts, how to come up with your question or what to research, and all those things. Your textbook, Maxfield, okay, 2018 is what it says right there. Research Methods for Criminal Justice and Criminology, 8th edition. I would like for everybody to get the online version, because that version we're going to see here in a minute is going to have where you're going to be able to navigate and ask questions or search for questions and have some abilities to search for your content within the course. So this is just a sliver of the textbook. When you have the textbook online, there's a deal where you can search content throughout the textbook. Also, you can have it to where everything's at your fingertips. You'll be able to navigate through portions. Like if I narrow down the chapter and I say read pages 36 through 32 or whatever, I don't know, and you could go right to those sections and carve out what the bits and pieces you need to know. You'll be able to highlight. You'll be able to use your textbook. I know you can't see a lot of the textbook page, but I have that done for a reason. But if you needed your citations, right there they are. Okay. It has it where it'll read to you. It has it where you can mark it. You can make notes, flashcards, highlight, all that within the digital book that you cannot do with the other printed books. If we see this right here, it says sexual assault in jails and prisons. One of the things I want to do is show you why that you would need to have research justice system to try to give you an example of a reasoning behind it. Sexual assault in jails and prisons. Responding to reports of sexual assault in prisons and jails, the Prison Rape Elimination Act became law in 2003. The act enhanced penalties for sexual violence in most detention facilities and required the Department of Justice to collect systematic data on the problem. The newspaper article, County Misreports Data About Sexual Violence in Juvenile Jails, is an example of how sexual assault continues to be a problem in San Diego, California. And then you see where it says Mass 2012. Researchers have conducted studies to better understand the problem and assess ways to reduce sexual violence. Alan Beck and Associates, 2010, described data collected from a sample of prisons and jails by the Bureau of Justice Statistics. They reported that 4% of prison inmates and 3% of jail inmates were victims of sexual assault in the previous 12 months or since being admitted to the facility. Projecting those percentages to all prisons and jails nationwide produces an estimate of 88,500 adult victims. In addition, the researchers report that approximately 3% of the prison inmates and 2% of those in jail had sexual contact with faculty, facility staff, often willingly. Okay, so Nancy, I don't know how you pronounce the last name, and other researchers from the Urban Institute in 2011 described their research on how to prevent sexual assault in jails. Working with these three facilities, they described efforts to improve supervision of inmates and correction officers. They installed surveillance cameras. They trained officers in crisis intervention. Based on their evaluation, Miss Nancy and the associates recommended that the jail administrators use a systematic process to assess problems in, let's see if we can go to the next page, specific facilities designed the changes that address those problems and collect data to assess the effects of the new actions. This example illustrates how researchers take steps to better understand the scope of the problem and then try different approaches to reduce it. The Urban Institute analysts went on one step further in their efforts to train correctional officers to do their own applied research. Jail managers were consumers of research produced by Miss Nancy and Associates, and also gained some of the skills needed to become producers of applied studies in their own facilities. So what we see is they had an issue. It was brought to the attention. Someone goes out and researches how bad is the problem, where all is it at, what are the numbers, and they go out there and provide this data. Then they take that data back, and the people who are in charge, or other lawmakers, or whoever the people in charge are, will take that data, and then they come up with potential solutions. Now let's look. So, what we have here is that was why, or one example of why, research methods is important in the criminal justice system. We're going to also look at and try to understand why knowledge of research method is valuable to the criminal justice professionals. Again, when we have this data of what is the homicide rate, what is the DWI rate, what are the, I don't know, there's tons of information that you can gather. And when we take that data, that tells us where to focus our resources and or policy or law changes. Describe the different ways we know things. Okay, distinguish inquiry as a natural human activity from inquiry through systematic empirical research. So we're going to be those people on the street, officers, for instance, might come back and say, man, we have a meth issue. I'm arresting, quite a bit of individuals on the street every day for methamphetamines. Then we take that and we say, is it really a lot? Let's check the other officers. When we take a look and we run a report, and see how bad is methamphetamines on the street. Then, because we know, the officer says, hey, I know these things are going on, but through a systematic empirical research, we take that data and then we're able to synthesize it and say, is there really an issue going on, or is this just hearsay? We're going to recognize that much of our knowledge is based on agreement rather than on direct experience. So a lot of times we say, let me think of an example. President Trump, he needs to resign because he doesn't know what he's doing. Or, and a lot of people just agree with that because they don't like that party or they don't like that candidate. But is he really screwing up? We look at the data. So we can go over and say, when I used to teach political science, we talked about President Obama or President Bush. A lot of people would disagree with that person and dislike that person just based on their political party affiliation. They would say, President Obama needs to be impeached. Quite a few people around me agreed with that. But then I would ask, wait a minute, is this just your opinion, or is there actual data to back that up? And so we're going to look at those things within the criminal justice system. Is there really this law breaking going on, or is this just your opinion? Explain how tradition and authority are important sources of knowledge. Understand that the role of experience and systematic observation in criminal justice research is important. Okay. Recognize that social science guards against but does not prevent political beliefs from affecting research findings. We have to be careful with our beliefs, our values, our morals, our biases. Those things affect research. If you already have a predetermined outcome because you don't like somebody or something or the drug or whatever the case may be, you can't bend your research to fit your outcome that you want. You have to be non-biased in order for this to work right. We want to distinguish the different purposes of research. We're going to look at designs on how to design a research project and look at the different portions of a research project and know how to navigate the road to build one successfully. Within that research project, you're going to review research literature over your topic. Describe how to write a research proposal. Again, we're going to focus on the portions of a research proposal that leads to a project, and we're going to look at how to put all that together throughout the whole process. Criminal justice professionals are both consumers and producers of research. In our example about sexual violence inside the jail and prisons, they actually work within that environment, so they're consumers, but they also produce the data of the research. And it's kind of a cycle, okay? It's like a circle. We have an issue within our environment. We gather as much knowledge as we can about it. Once we do that, we adjust what we're doing and how we're doing things in order to make that issue either increase or go away. It is important for criminal justice professionals to be informed consumers of research. You've got to know how to conduct research and how to have validity in everything we do, especially when it comes to professionalism. So we're going to use scientific method, okay, scientific methodology, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But we're going to use that along with our APA form and style to conduct our research so that we can be better consumers of the criminal justice system. So it's going to help us provide us with factual data, validity, and standing so that we can be the best prepared and professional people within the criminal justice system. We need to understand the findings and how to apply those findings to the departments we work within or whoever we're researching about. Experimental reality. Okay, so I'm going to refer to some other notes over the exact same pieces of information. So excuse me real quick. Let's see if I have... The things about experimental reality, the things we know from direct experience. Now this case right here on the slide says learning that a burner is hot by touching a stove. If we look at it in the actual criminal justice system on the street, we can say certain characteristics or certain, well, when we had the racial profiling research that Dr. Lee and I did in 2014 and 2015, we looked at the data within the San Angelo Police Department, and we looked at the traffic contacts that the officers made within a period of time, over about 5-year period of time. So what we knew is there was complaints going on within San Angelo saying that there was racial profiling. Okay, so then we take that information and then we're going to go research it out. So we know that just like the burner is hot by touching the stove, you could sit there and have different issues within the criminal justice system that we can look at that are understood. Officers patrol the street and do traffic control, something like that. Okay, all right, so then what don't we know? Well, do those officers commit racial profiling? Okay, then you go from there. An agreement reality are things that we consider real because we have been told they are real and everyone agrees. And this example here says the sun sets in the west. Well, you know, you might say, well, there might be a certain percentage of oxygen in the air that you need to breathe, and you're told it was 21%. Well, everybody breathes oxygen, so everybody's probably going to know that that's so. Kansas City Preventive Patrol Experiment. This revealed that the agreement reality that simple increasing patrols decrease crime was misleading. Just because we increase patrol or increase the employees doesn't mean it's going to affect or change what's going on. They have to be effective. Just because we hire people doesn't mean they can do that the overall department does their job better. Same thing, I like to use the example of education. Just because we hire 1 million teachers doesn't mean we're getting better educated. Are those teachers able to effectively teach? And so just because you add money to it, that's a good example. Within the education system, they always said that we need more money. We need more money to make things better in education. You can throw as much money as you want into it. That is not going to make education better. You have to be more efficient. You have to be, have more strategies and tools and you got to be able to deliver in order for things to improve. And so just because you add numbers to it doesn't mean it's going to fix the issue. Empirical research, knowledge produced based on experience or observation. What I did is in my PhD dissertation, I went out into the community and experienced what was going on with the lack of participation of the Hispanic population within voting. So I experienced the phenomenon and asked the questions, what's going on? Why? You could also observe these things when, if they sit there and, some scientist or person, or maybe, you're watching the officers do their jobs and you're observing, watching them do what they do, and then base your research on that. Scientists have certain criteria to be met within accepting experimental and agreement realities. In order to have validity, you got to have certain criteria that is followed and met. You have to have certain strategies and certain things, checks and balances put into place. An assertion must have both logical and empirical support. Methodology, the science of finding out. So we're going to use scientific methodology to research different areas within the criminal justice system because we want to find out the truth. And a criminal justice investigation can use scientific method, which will help provide more validity and more structure of how that investigation is completed in order to provide it more legitness, if you want to call it that, within the criminal justice system and the court system. Future circumstances are caused or conditioned by present ones. This is where we talk about variables. There's certain things that's going to affect what is going on. If we look at crime data and we say, man, crime's going up, it's skyrocketing. Well, what circumstances might be causing things to change within our environment? Is it the economy? Is it the government and the distrust? And so we're going to have things that are going to affect our condition. It's going to condition our environment and make things change. We use causal and probabilistic reasoning. Kind of a tongue twister. So we're going to look at the different angles to our research to understand our issues and our questions that we have. The goal is to understand why certain things are related, why patterns occur, to enable us to make more accurate predictions. Criminology 101. We look at patterns within people's behavior to predict further actions in the future. If someone is a predator, of sexual predator or burglar or whatever the case may be, we can look at the characteristics in the past of an individual and predict what they may do in the future. So all that adds up. Excuse me. Tradition, things that everybody knows. Driving on the left side of the road in the U.S. is dangerous. Why? Because we drive on the right side. Authority, trusting the judgment of someone with special expertise. Once you build your personal brand of how you behave, your characteristics of behavior as a professional, as a student, and someone going into law enforcement, you build your authority. That way people can trust your judgment. Okay? And once you become the expert within an area, then you can build that trust and authority. You are more likely to believe a judge regarding your driver's license suspension than your parents. The judge has way more authority than your parents and has more know-how, more understanding, and if they're the ones that actually suspended your license, they're going to know the facts that you might hide from your parents. Both provide us with a starting point for our own inquiry.